Research and constant scientific progress give us a better understanding of the metamorphoses of the hair. From the very first weeks of life, the skin undergoes extraordinary transformations. The epithelium, the tissue of the epidermis, and the connective tissue of the dermis continually transmit messages which trigger the manufacture of hair follicles. In the dermis, fibroblasts weave a network of collagen fibers, the connective sheath surrounding the follicle. The fibroblasts accumulate to create the future dermal papilla. The hair follicle buries itself in the dermis until it reaches the hypodermis. The hair will develop from the bulb and from the papilla of the hair follicle. Blood capillaries appear through the network of collagen fibers. The sweat glands secrete and filter sweat. Nerves form a tight web around the follicle. Linked to the follicle are the sebaceous glands which secrete sebum into it. The hair is formed under the connective sheath, the external epithelial sheath and the internal epithelial sheath. Its hair bulb attaches itself like a press stud to the dermal papilla. This is where the epithelial tissue and the connective tissue exchange their messages. Inside the hair bulb, which is still connected to the papilla, a profusion of cells multiply and diversify. Some fill with melanin and make up the body of the hair, the cortex. Some form the internal epithelial sheath, whilst yet others migrate towards the surface to form the external epithelial sheath. The cells of the cortex very soon stop multiplying. They elongate, lose their nucleus and fill with keratin fibers to form the hair shaft. The external cells of the shaft take the form of scales. The growth phase lasts for an average of 4 years. The hair grows approximately 1 centimeter per month. This is the anagen phase. A message interrupts the activity of the bulb cells, causing them to stop multiplying. The cells of the external and internal epithelial sheaths degenerate. The hair bulb decreases in volume. Gripped by the dermis, it's expelled upwards and comes away from the papilla. Gradually, the papilla follows. A fine network of connective fibers links it to its previous location. This is the catagen phase. During the resting phase, lasting 2 to 3 months, the hair falls out, but messages are being exchanged again. This is the telogen phase. After a few months, communication is re-established between the epithelial cells of the bulb and those of the papilla. The follicle is rebuilt downwards, crossing the fine network of fibers which have remained in place, and a new anagen phase begins. The life of the hair undergoes a series of continuous three-phase cycles, the anagen, catagen and telogen phases. The hair is flexible and highly resistant. Its cuticle is made up of between 3 and 10 layers of keratin scales and forms a protective barrier against attack. Under the scales, the cortex gives the hair its main characteristics: elasticity, resistance, and permeability. In the cells of the cortex, grains of melanin, which are responsible for the hair's color, are incorporated into an amorphous keratin. This is the intercellular cement which represents 2/3 of the cortex. The cells of the cortex are composed of macrofibrils. Each of these is made up of microfibrils. The smaller microfibrils are themselves made up of a grouping of protofibrils. Each protofibril is a coil of 4 keratin chains. Keratin combines the atoms of 19 amino acids, including sulfur, which plays an important role in the cohesion of the hair. Sometimes some of the cogs seize up and the hair cycles become disrupted. The network of connective fibers can thicken and harden. In this case, the connective sheath becomes stiff and prevents the follicle from fully redescending. Growth is impeded. The new hair will not have the same vitality and thickness. If this stiffness intensifies, the hair follicle can't develop as it should. The hair becomes increasingly more fine and eventually disappears. The hair's beauty depends on maintaining a balance in the scalp, and in particular on the presence of the hydrolipidic film made up of sebum and sweat. This film helps to maintain the skin's elasticity and resistance. It lubricates the hair, keeping it flexible and shiny. The hydrolipidic film may become too excessive if the flow of hormones overstimulates the sebaceous glands. Sebum then slides along the hair, weighing it down. The scalp may become irritated. When the hydrolipidic film is virtually non-existent, the scalp becomes dry. Now less well protected, the hair becomes damaged, tangled, and dull. Other elements may cause more serious damage to the hair. The intercellular cement, which maintains the cohesion of the scales, then deteriorates, causing the hair to weaken. It loses its elasticity and breaks more easily. Healthy hair is also dependent on the smooth functioning of the scalp and the epidermis, which undergoes constant renewal. The cells of the epidermis migrate from the basal layer to the surface corneum layer. Over this 15-day migration period, these cells change into keratinized cells, which are flat and have no nucleus. In the corneum layer, the cells are surrounded by intercellular cement. When this disintegrates, the cells break loose. This is normal invisible desquamation. The scalp may become abnormally sensitive. For internal or external reasons, the nerve endings react to provoke itching. The dilated blood capillaries give the skin its reddish appearance. The dehydrated intercellular cement causes excessive desquamation of the surface corneal cells. The scalp may produce dandruff. An excess of the microorganisms naturally present on the scalp leads to an imbalance in the epidermis. The basal cells become irritated and are renewed more rapidly. They arrive on the surface of the scalp incomplete and in clusters. This is dandruff. The hair can be molded into any shape. In the cortex, the protofibrils aligned lengthwise along the hair are made up of two lots of two chains of keratin held in the intercellular cement. This structure is held together by links or bonds between the keratin atoms. This is what gives the hair its strength and its resistance. The temporary or permanent breakdown of some of these bonds brings about a change in the shape of the hair. The weakest bonds, hydrogen or saline bonds, can be broken simply by water or moisture. When we shape the hair by drying it, these bonds are rebuilt to maintain that shape for a while. In fact, other, stronger bonds tend to return the hair to its original shape. These are the disulfide bonds. These more robust disulfide bonds connect the keratin chains and link the chains to the intercellular cement. They can't be broken by water. Reducing agents separate the chains and the cement surrounding them. The pigment, it would be transparent. This is white hair. Melanin pigments are produced in the hair bulb by melanocytes. In the melanocytes, the tyrosine molecule is transformed into melanin under the influence of tyrosinase and a series of oxidations. Melanin is concentrated in granular pigments known as eumelanins, which are responsible for dark-colored hair, and diffuse pigments called pheomelanins, which are responsible for light-colored hair. These pigments are spread throughout the cells of the cortex. When tyrosinase ceases to be active, melanin is no longer produced and white hairs appear. Pigments are partially destroyed by the oxygen in the air. This oxidation is enhanced by sunlight, heat and moisture. This is the natural process of lightening the hair color. It's possible to control the lightening of the hair by oxidation. The pigments gradually disappear and the hair's color lightens in stages. Fading is not the only process which causes lasting change to the color of the hair. Oxidation coloring allows the hair to be lightened or darkened. The action of ammonia and an oxidant release oxygen. The hair becomes lighter. At the same time, the formation of coloring agents inside the structure recolors it. Oxidation coloring also enables the introduction of subtle or bright tones without changing the color of the hair. Nothing is more natural or familiar than the hair. However, it cannot express all its potential beauty unless we have an in-depth knowledge of its life and metamorphoses.